Podcasting from Heroes Media Group with real, relevant, and raw opinions. This is the College Sports Hour with your host, Clint McPherson, and co-host, Greg Dixon.
What's up, guys? You're listening to episode 7 of the College Sports Hour. We're talking about week 8 of the 2018 college football season, and for all the college basketball fans out there, we are just a little over 2 weeks away from tip-off. I'm your host, Clint, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Greg. What's up, brother?
Hey, man, hope you're doing well. Man, it's been another great week up here on this side of North Carolina, enjoying some cooler weather, some leaves that are changing, the wind is picking up, and that means, man, that we are another couple of weeks closer to the college football playoff as well as the tip-off of basketball season.
No doubt, man. I saw that the new power rankings came out for college basketball. The cool thing is I watched the exhibition, I believe, of Duke, and, man, that dude is ridiculous. I don't remember his name. Is Zion Williams, right?
Zion Williams is his name.
Dude, he is off the charts. I'm talking about, I don't know why they don't have Duke as number 1 in the power rankings, but, man, I know they're in the top 5, but this kid is legit, and he's going to take that team to the next level, man.
Well, not to get too far into college basketball yet, but there are probably 2 reasons why Duke's not ranked number 1. Number 1 is because we don't really have a whole lot of senior leadership on that team. We are going to be another team that is full of freshmen that are running the court, as well as the question will be who's going to play the best defense on our team. Defense is going to be our Achilles heel this year if we can't get that under control.
Hey, the cool thing, man, is, I'm not used to seeing Florida State. I know their official rankings haven't came out yet. But, dude, just them throwing Florida State up there in the top 25, man, I got so excited. So that's something I can look forward to this season.
Hey, man, Florida State's been having a good team the last couple of years. Don't sell yourself short on that one.
All right, brother. On this episode, guys, we'll be talking about how the top 25 fared over the weekend, how any of those upsets or losses impact their seasons moving forward, and address any final thoughts or surprises we might have from week 8. We'll also talk about the new AP Top 25 rankings heading into week 9, highlight some important Week 9 matchups, and address who could be on upset alert heading into Week 9.
Hey, and just a quick reminder before we dive into everything, make sure that you check out and subscribe to the College Sports Hour on iTunes, Google Play Music, and YouTube under College Sports Hour. You can also find us at heroesmediagroup.com by clicking on the show tab. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook and visit our website at collegesportshour.com, where we continue the college sports conversation, post articles, and give our weekly predictions on what we deem as the most important games of the week. Also want to let everybody know that today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Blue 4 Tactical. Blue 4 Tactical is a hub for local shooting novices and enthusiasts alike by giving them superior customer service while providing high-quality firearms and accessories and informative, engaging classes taught by knowledgeable and passionate instructors, all at the fairest and competitive prices possible. The Blue 4 Tactical team members will bring to the table more than 100 years of combined experience in firearms, shooting, and tactics through military experience and other backgrounds. This is important because they will use that experience to build a relationship with every customer to better understand their need so that they as a team can get them the tool that suits them without the customer having to worry about anything simply trying to be made a sale. They want to make sure that you're a part of their family at your home, away from home. So be ready, be prepared, and be decisive.
With that said, my man, Week 8 of the 2018 college football season was interesting, to say the least.
No doubt.
It might not have been as chaotic as Week 6 or Week 7, brother, but Week 8 helped further separate the contenders from the pretenders. We witnessed the Buckeyes get manhandled, brother, by a 3-3 Purdue team that started off the year 0-3. Now, okay, that's a little misleading, but those 3 losses, though, came at the hands of Northwestern, Eastern Michigan, and Missouri. So like Kirk Herbstreit mentioned after the game, man, during one of his interviews, Ohio State has a lot of work to do. And this weekend further trimmed down some of the college football playoff contenders or made it just that more complicated. And of note, only 5 unbeaten teams remain. That's number 1 Alabama, number 2 Clemson, number 3 Notre Dame, and number 10 Central Florida. and number 21 South Florida. So with all that said, man, what did you make out of what went down this past week?
I got to be honest with you, man. I was looking forward to college football this weekend, but as I looked at it on paper, I didn't really think that it was going to be – I didn't anticipate it being like the previous 2 weeks or anything. And then even as we got into the day of Saturday, the early afternoon games and the late afternoon games, it kind of everything was still falling in line pretty much the way that you anticipated. And then it seemed like Saturday night everything went crazy. Everybody lost their mind as to what they should be doing on the football field, and it got really, really crazy there for a little bit.
Yeah, man, because coming into this, like we said, it just looked like a snoozer. It looked like this week on paper, everybody was going to take care of business. That, if somebody upset somebody, it wouldn't have been crazy like Purdue beat Ohio State the way they beat them. And
right.
I don't even think that was a surprise to me that they lost.
Right.
But how they lost was the thing that really blew my mind.
Well, I mean, I didn't anticipate Ohio State losing this game. I mean, it would have been a dogfight. Yeah, it could have been a little bit of a hurdle in there. But at the end of the day, I expected Ohio State with that high-powered offense to come in there and at the end of the day, pull out enough, plays in there to win that game. I certainly didn't see the final score being what the final score was. I didn't see their offense struggling as much as it did, not getting a touchdown there to the fourth quarter. I mean, it wasn't pretty as far as the Buckeyes are concerned.
Man, they moved the yardage, man. They moved the ball.
Yeah.
But it was not converting or scoring and getting points out of it was what really did them in. And some of the crazy plays Purdue was making, man, they were just destined to win that game. Ohio State again possibly looking ahead,
Sure.
overlooking Purdue. I really think that played a lot into it too. But man, again, did not see that happening. Did not see some of these teams struggling like they did. But, man, again, another week comes. Another week surprises us. And like I said, interesting, man.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good word for this week is just simply interesting.
So here's how the top 25 fared during the week 8 of the 2018 college football season. So what we're going to do now is work from basically, the top 25 team all the way to number 1. So Saturday, man, October 20th, like we said, was just interesting, was crazy. It's just something that I thought was not going to be exciting, but like you said, the night came, and whether it was a full moon or not, it seemed like, with Halloween right around the corner, it just seemed like one of those weekends that just, again, I left impressed by of the way some of these teams performed. But this Wisconsin team, going against Illinois, going against Lovie Smith, they're favored by 24. This is a team that really took care of business. The quarterback struggled a little bit, threw 3 interceptions, two key interceptions. One got called back, from a penalty. But basically, number 23 Wisconsin bounced back from a devastating loss to Wisconsin. They took care of business. They keep their Western Division title hopes alive. To return to the Big Ten championship game. And so, I mean, what do you make of this, man?
Well, you know what? This right here is the Wisconsin team that you expected to show up last week, even against a tough Michigan team. And it's the team you've been looking for all year. This is a typical game of who Wisconsin is. They're going to run the ball all over you as best they can, man. That offensive line is going to create holes. Their running backs are going to go in there, and they're going to pound the ball. This is the kind of game they want to do. And then they want to play a hard-nosed defense. That's kind of how they're going to get their MO there at Wisconsin. They rush the ball as a team for 357 yards. They held total yards for Illinois to under 300. So, I mean, this is the kind of game that you expected Wisconsin to play. You expected them to win, specifically at home, coming off of that hard loss last week, and they did exactly what you expected them to do.
Yeah, man, and this is exactly like you said. I thought this was what they were going to help. I know Michigan's good. I know they got a good defense.
Yeah.
But I just didn't see them manhandling and controlling that game like they did. And the Wisconsin bounced back huge. Jonathan Taylor rushed for 159 yards. Tywan Dill almost matched that with 111 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they took advantage of the 5 first half turnovers that Illinois just had trouble holding on to the ball. Wisconsin goes on to win this game 49-20, and they left me impressed, even though, they have a 2-loss team.
Yep.
Man, when they get that running game going, it's tough to beat them.
Absolutely. And this isn't a bad Illinois team that they beat here. I mean, this is a pretty good Illinois team. So this was a good win for Wisconsin.
Yeah, Illinois, like you said, is not bad. Their passing game, obviously, with 57 yards, struggling. But, man,
Slightly.
It's one of those, it's Lovie Smith, taking over this team. He's a good coach. He's just like Herm Edwards to a certain degree, to where he's going to turn this program around. And I really am interested in seeing what they can do in the future.
Absolutely.
So let's move on, man. This is another game that was like, South Florida, what are you doing? You're struggling again. They play Connecticut. UConn showed up, had these guys reeling for a lot of the game. South Florida pulls this out 38-30. But, man, they got off to another slow start, but they remain unbeaten.
This is why here's one of those games why teams like South Florida or teams like UCF don't get a whole lot of respect and don't get a whole lot of love around the country, is because you've got a Connecticut team, a 1-6 Connecticut team coming to town right there, and you're projected to just wipe the floor with them, and you only beat them by 8, and it was a come from behind victory there that you kind of had in hand, and then Connecticut came back. So I mean, this is why you're not getting a whole lot of love, because you are not dominating teams that you should be dominating here. And it was South Florida came out with a win, and some teams we've said that at the end of the day, that's all you want to do is just simply be able to win. But when you got teams like a Alabama or teams like a Clemson that are playing tougher competition and are able to dominate in such fashion, you're not going to get the respect and the love that a South Florida team would like to have.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things when you go out and you give over 400 yards to a 1-5 or 1-6 team coming in there, and you're favored by 31.5 points,
right?
And you win by 8, and you struggle at best to win by 8. Yeah, man, you're gonna like, you're 7-0 right now, hover around the 21 spot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, geez, you're not going to get much love moving forward. You're not going to be in that title hunt conversation. You could possibly have the chance to make you self-proclaimed national champions like Central Florida. Right. But come on, man, nobody's going to take that, serious.
Well, just think about it. I mean, they've got the same record as Central Florida, but they're 11 spots higher in the polls, or lower, however you want to say it. But they're 21, and UCF was 10. So, I mean, there's something to be said there as well.
Yeah, Johnny Ford rushed for 164 yards and 3 touchdowns Saturday night, helping the Bulls pull away. With a halftime tie, they went in at halftime, knotted at 7. But they, again, hold on. They take that victory 38-30 over Connecticut, and they remain unbeaten. Right. So, man, this was a game that on my live that I was like, watch out. Temple plays teams tough. They're another one of those teams that, if you come in ranked and you overlook them, they're playing at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, PA. It's one of those things, Temple went into this game favored, so I don't know if you can really call it an upset. Right. But, man, Cincinnati was undefeated coming into this game at 6-0. They lose 24-17.
Once again, this is one of those games out here that you're looking at and you're saying, why would Temple be favored going up against an undefeated Cincinnati team? Well, this right here is exactly why. When Temple can come in there and they can jump out to a lead, and it gets, and then they even, then Cincinnati jumps back out there. They gain the lead going into that fourth quarter, and then Temple's able to, regain the lead there, and tie the game up in the fourth quarter, and then win it in overtime. If you're going to be a Cincinnati team that's going to be able to run there towards the end and be able to, make a name for yourself, you've got to be able to win these close games, these tough games that are on the road there for you, and it just didn't happen for them.
Yeah, Cincinnati's defense came out and actually did pretty decent. I mean, they were forcing turnovers. Anthony Russo for Temple, he actually threw 3 interceptions, which kind of hindered their progression through the game. Mm-hmm. But, man, he came through down the stretch, and the Owls handed one of the most surprising teams. Because if you ask anybody, Cincinnati would not be undefeated at this point. They handed them their first loss. But, I mean, Russo, to get his team to force that overtime, he threw a tying 20-yard touchdown pass with 49 seconds left to Brandon Mack. Man, it was right on the money. And then in overtime, a 25-yard touchdown by Isaiah Wright, the guy from, the Netflix series. In overtime, as Temple beat number 20 Cincinnati 24-17. I mean, Cincinnati had 84 passing yards.
Yeah.
84.
Here's the stats that really kind of don't for me, don't tell the tale of the game. when you look at a Cincinnati team that's going to have a total rushing yards of 200 yards versus 80 for Temple, in my mind, you would sit there and think, okay, they played ball control. They should have won this game. But then when you flip it and you look at the passing yards, 84 for Cincinnati versus 237 for Temple. Man, you got to kind of really begin to scratch your head a little bit and say, why? Why wasn't this team able to come away with a victory when they were able to run for 200 yards?
Yeah, and Cincinnati, again, was one of those teams, possibly not getting the love they thought they deserved. But, man, the difference between some of these teams that are getting the love is beating the big teams that you actually have, or the teams that you're supposed to beat. Right. I mean, they're supposed to go in there and beat a 5-2 or 5-3 Temple. It's like, but you don't do it. It's like, that's the reason you're in the American Conference. That's the reason you're not getting love, because when you play some of these lower level opponents, you don't get the job done.
Well, okay, it's a road game, but you've got to win this game. I mean, there's really no reason why you shouldn't be winning this game.
I totally agree, man. So a team that has really impressed me, the defense has really stepped up. This is a team I don't feel that's getting enough love right now. Their defense is just as good, if not, very comparable to the Michigan out there.
Right.
They go into this game favored by 9, obviously, and they shut Maryland out. This is something that, Iowa is taking care of business. Iowa, number 19 in the nation, coming into this game, playing at home at Kinnick Stadium. They go in and beat Maryland 23-0, man.
I tell you, Maryland's a team that, man, I thought would has been a little up and down this year. They played some really good games, and then they've had some rough games, kind of like this one. And there's been some some turnover there on their team as far as personnel and coaching staff and all that stuff that happened at the beginning of the season, man, which was just horrible. But I expected there to be more from this team. I expected there to be a better effort to be put forth by the Maryland Terrapins here. And I get that weather played a role in this game. But, man, when you can't manage more than 100 yards of offense for your team, there's an issue. And you're not going to score any points. You're not going to win any games playing that way. You have got to do a better job than that.
Man, and I know the weather played a huge role in a lot of these games and a lot of these teams not putting the yardage they did out there. But, man, come on, dude. A D1 football team.
Yeah.
In the Maryland Terrapins, going out and posting 34 passing yards, 68 rushing yards, and you barely bust the 100-yard mark throughout the entire game? What?
Yep.
I mean, come on, dude. I got it. The wind made basically every play an ugly one. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't, but, man, Iowa's defense just looked great. And they look like a team that could, possibly hang with some of these opponents they have coming up on their schedule. But Nate Stanley, I mean, when you look at this statistic, Nate Stanley threw for 86 yards, and this is in a touchdown, and we're talking about this. It's like, the quarterback threw for 86 yards and a touchdown. But, dude, that's really the biggest thing that really happened for Iowa other than the running game. They posted 224 rushing yards. But, man, when it came down to it, they held Maryland scoreless, man.
When your defense is playing that well, and obviously the weather's going to help you out a little bit there, but when your defense is playing that well, all you got to do is play mistake-free football, and your team's going to win the game. Yeah,
so that's their third straight victory. So I mean, that they're looking good by every week that goes by. But here we go again, man. Another game, another team that and James Franklin. It just makes me laugh every time. It's like we're great. We're not elite yet.
Yeah.
But man, you struggle against an Indiana team. Indiana was not favored in this game. Penn State was favored by 13.5, and they struggled. They had to pull it out. I mean, it was one of those games that went back and forth, but Penn State wins 33-28.
All right, Penn State wins. Let's keep that in mind. Penn State does come away with the win. However, that loss that they had to Ohio State has ruined their season. And I remember us coming on this podcast and saying, man, we're coming out for that game, and yeah, they lost to Ohio State, but man, I'm coming back impressed with Penn State and how they played and how well that they did down the stretch there and almost winning that game. And almost doesn't count a whole lot, but in my mind it did for that game because I thought it was a changing of the guard right there for Penn State. It gave them a toughness, a new mentality there. And, man, they've come out flat. Yes, they won that game against Indiana, but, man, they are not putting forth the effort and the energy into the games that we are, used to believing that Penn State would come out with, especially after that game against Ohio State. Man, I just say it again. That has ruined this season. Once again, you look at the stats that Indiana put up versus what Penn State put up, it doesn't look like Penn State should have won this game. but they did. They were able to pull it out, which give them props for, give them credit for. But this is not the same Penn State team that we saw at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, that second quarter really sticks out to me, with them holding Indiana scoreless, Indiana putting 10 in that quarter, even though they went in halftime 17-14, that was big.
Yeah.
Because they basically just traded scores from there. Trace McSorley, and number 18, Penn State, kept it simple to snap a 2-game losing streak. But, man, it could have been 3. So, McSorley, again, he passed for 220 yards, ran for 107, and he had his hand in 3 touchdowns.
Right.
And so, again, their best player steps up, and he helps lead them to victory. But, man, like you said, that loss has basically ruined their season. They're totally doing a nosedive. Hopefully for Penn State fans, this is kind of a game that they can kind of turn around their season after those 2 losses. But, man, if they continue to come out flat like this, some of these bigger games they have later on in the season, they're going to fall flat again.
It'll be interesting to see how they finish out the rest of the season, but I would venture to say that the rate they're going now and the direction they're headed now, they've only got 2 losses, so let's not, say the house is falling here or anything like that. But they're just not playing good football right now.
Yeah, but when you claim yourself to be great, but not
it.
elite.
I get it. That comment continues to stick out there and ring true. We kind of get a chance to put that, put some fire underneath that phrase. But once again, man, they're not playing as well as they should be playing at this point.
Yeah, and I'm just having fun with it. I think I'm gonna make a jab, a left hook, and an uppercut every week I can to just knock that home, because I just hate when somebody goes and talks massive stuff, and then they can't back it up on the field.
We're great. We're just not elite. Yeah, I get it.
So, okay, this is a game, man. Colorado, they were looking great, sitting at 5-0. They've struggled, and I don't want to call us out on this, but there's a game we missed talking about last week, and I don't know if you knew this, and that's all on me. It's definitely on me. But it's some blame too to my co-host for saying, "Bro, what's happening?" We did not talk about Colorado USC. I don't want to make it look like we don't know what we're doing, but hey.
Look, there's a lot of notes to go through here, people, all right? So we missed something, all right?
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
But I just want to apologize for the USC and Colorado fans, that anybody that tuned in, we missed that game last week, but definitely we're not missing talking about Colorado this week.
Yeah.
They didn't get the job done against number 15 Washington, but they gave Washington a run for their money. It took some big plays towards the end of that game for Washington to actually separate themselves from Colorado, but right. Colorado put up a valiant effort. Washington was favored by 17. Obviously, they win by 14, 27-13. But again, Washington, what is wrong? They just are not impressive. You expect them to come out, Jake Browning, firing all cylinders, but they just have not been able to put it all together.
You made the comment last week that you said that one day this team's going to put this whole thing together, this team being the Washington Huskies. But so far we haven't seen that this season. And we still haven't seen it this season. We didn't see it in this game against Colorado. You're right, Colorado put up a good effort, man. Going into the fourth quarter, this game's close. It's 17-13. And so, Colorado's got a chance there going to that game. I thought long and hard about picking Colorado as an upset this week, thinking that they were coming off of that loss to USC. Washington was coming off of a loss, but Washington's playing at home, so that kind of in my mind gave them what should have been a bigger advantage than what it turned out to be. But at the end of the day, Jake Brown and those guys, they got it done. It's just once again it's another team that's not impressive, and I think it's kind of where we're at this point in time in the season. There are teams that are impressing you with their wins, and there's teams that's not. The teams that just feel like they're kind of skating by, and I feel like at this point that's kind of where we find Washington at, just kind of getting by at this point.
Yeah, and I heard something interesting before we move off of this game too, and go into a little bit more detail with what Jake Browning and Aaron Fuller and his team did. But the Coach Peterson himself said that he's looking at Alabama. Got it. Alabama hasn't really played anybody of note yet, other than Texas A&M this year, but they've been taking care of business. And he said if we had Alabama's schedule, we would be undefeated. But I think if you flip the script around, and if Alabama had their schedule, they would be undefeated. So what kind of argument was he trying to make? I was like, what's going on? He said, I really thought he was talking out of turn when he said that, because I'm like, I agree. Alabama, you can't really do anything to schedules. They're in place way before, it's not like next year we can just start rearranging a whole bunch of things, because there's a lot of moving pieces that go into that. But obviously, some of the teams that are historically have been better in the past are just not as good this year for Alabama that they're going up against. But that's not That's no fault of their own. But then when you make a remark like that and you claim that you would be undefeated with their schedule, and then you go out and and struggle against some of these teams and have 2 losses on your record, I mean, I just don't know if you have room to talk.
Well, look, okay, I think this has been well stated over the last several weeks, but we'll state it just again. We're not Alabama fans, okay? I'm not an Alabama fan. However, I have to be able to sit back and look objectively at what this team is doing. Okay, the competition may not be as good at this point in time as what it has been in the past for the opponents that Alabama's facing. But the way in which they are beating them, there is something to be said for that. I mean, they're not struggling against anybody. So, yeah, it may have something to do with the competition level of those teams. I'll give you that part of it. But I will also say this. It has something to do with the dominance that is Alabama right now. They are a well-oiled machine that plays well on both sides of the ball in all phases of the game. And I'm just sorry, man. That's not something that any other team in the nation can say right now.
I agree. I think the only flaw I see kind of when I'm looking at Alabama, and like you stated, we're not Alabama fans by no point of the imagination at all, but it's like their only downfall right now, I see, is their secondary is a little suspect. But when you have an offense that can rush, that can throw, and granted, Tua has not thrown an interception yet to date.
I'm glad you said that.
Are you kidding me right now?
I was going to say that if you didn't. We hadn't said that yet. In this little journey that we're taking on this podcast, the Joker hasn't thrown an interception this season.
Exactly. So what do you think when you have a quarterback that is not only taking command of the games, but he's not turning the ball over? Come on, you can't. It's like there's nobody on that level right now. In the eye test, Alabama passes it all right now. There has been teams that were like, okay, Ohio State's looking great. Penn State's this. Everybody's that. But there comes weeks, and they don't do anything. So it's like Alabama has yet to slip. I'm not saying they won't do that against LSU or any of the other teams they have on their schedule. But to date, right now, as we speak, we have not seen them struggle at all, other than, okay, they let up 31 points against Arkansas. But I really think that's something that, it was something to try to take the diversion of, like, Alabama so good off of them. And I wouldn't go as far as to even say that they possibly allowed that to happen so everybody can say, oh, look at Alabama's defense. They're suspect. But come on, man.
Well, at some point in time, I would imagine that some of those guys get a little bored as well. So, you kind of maybe you lose a little bit of focus, maybe you lose a little bit of interest. But Nick Saban will have that corrected throughout the rest of the season too. So
switching back before we jump off of Washington, Colorado, actually Jake Browning, Aaron Fuller, it was a big key moment in this game that basically, Colorado sent a full, house was blitzing, man. They came in hard, and it was about they brought it open field, and it opened this huge play up, and one quick slant connection between Browning and Fuller was finally enough for them to really shake the Buffaloes in this game. So Browning threw that 26-yard touchdown pass to Fuller on 4th down with less than 4 minutes to go, and that basically changed the whole outcome of this game. So again, Washington takes care of business. Not impressive to me, but win 27-13.
And that's what you got to do, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, okay, man, this was a huge game. It was college game day was there. Number 12 Oregon versus number 25 Washington State. They're playing at Martin Stadium in Pullman, Washington. This is huge. Is this an upset? Washington, obviously in the rankings it is, but they were favored by 3.
Yeah. So, I think it's one of those things, too. If you look at what all has transpired over the last, 7-8 days for these two teams, Oregon coming off of a big win against Washington and then traveling to play at Washington State. So, there's something to be said there. Could Oregon bounce back and have, come off from the emotional win that they had? They were rolling. I predicted that, I chose Oregon that would come in there and win this game. I thought that they would be able to handle their business. But, man, I got to give a lot of credit to Washington State, and not necessarily just their offense, but the way that their defense played specifically in that first half. I didn't think that their defense would be able to do that, but man, golly, wow, holding Oregon scoreless in the first half, man, that's a huge deal right there.
Yeah, this was one of the biggest days in program history for Washington State, obviously. Yep. And it started with the celebration outside the gates of Martin Stadium, and it ended and it ended perfectly for them because they were partying on the field at the end of the night. But I knew Oregon was going to struggle with the passing attack. I got it. Right. I knew it was going to be that would have present a problem. I didn't think that they would be held to 58 rushing yards and have to solely rely on their passing game, which they have a good quarterback, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
But, I mean, Gardner Minshew threw for a 22-yard touchdown pass to Desmond Patman on the back of the end zone with 3:40 left. And number 25, Washington, they ended up winning this one 34-20. But it was like, look, they almost, if you look at it, they were dominant in the first half, but it was one of those things that it almost was like the Oregon-Stanford type thing. Oregon clawed their way back into this, and Washington State found themselves at the end trying to survive it. But they got a huge fourth down conversion, man. I don't know if you saw that final drive for them that last touchdown pass, but man, it was a huge fourth down. Mike Leach, he gambled, he went for it, they converted, and they win.
Which, okay, so you got this big game coming on there for the Pac-12. I mean, you're looking to be able to win, and that's what they're able to do. But you're right, man. That the way that Oregon struggled running the ball, man, I don't know that anybody really saw that coming. And seeing their lead running back, C.J. Verdell, only rushing for 55 yards. That right there, for me, you could look at the game as a tale of two halves, and the way that they played in the first half versus the way they played in the second half. But the way that they ran the ball or didn't run the ball really, for me, sets the stage right there for why Washington State was able to win that game.
Yeah, man, I came away really impressed with Washington State's performance. Though I think they kind of nursed it, milked it towards the end. They kind of took their foot off the throttle. I don't think that a Mike Leach team, when you really rely on your passing attack and all that stuff that goes for you, and historically haven't had the greatest of defenses, you can't take your foot off the throttle. But man, kudos to them having this huge game. Them stepping up and actually securing this victory and actually catapulting them into the rankings and be one of the biggest movers this week in the new AP Top 25.
Yeah, and, great for them. Keep it going. Keep it rolling, guys, and we'll see what happens with the rest of your season.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how that's going to play out. So let's switch to the Central Florida-East Carolina game. This was a game that I was like, okay, maybe I went to an East Carolina game a little, too early. Maybe I should have went with this one to really get to see the Heisman hopeful.
Yeah.
But guess what, man?
He didn't play.
He didn't play. I know he kind of hurt his ankle towards the end of the last game, rushing the ball. I don't know if it was a coach's decision. Don't know if that played any part in it. I don't think they released anything. And before this, I didn't see anything. So I don't know what they're keeping secret. I don't know if he got injured more severely than we thought, or if he got in trouble. But man, they started off slow. The first quarter, obviously, they had to come up because Milton went through warm-ups, man. Everybody was like, okay, he showed up, he's ready to play. He didn't play, and they only threw for 98 yards. So that was a big thing that kind of affected their performance, but they beat East Carolina 37-10.
I wonder if at the end of the first quarter, if UCF is scratching their heads looking around because they were down 3-0 at the end of the first and kind of like, you know what? What kind of deal are we making here? And then they might go on a little bit of a tear right there and be able to put away the Pirates, who, we said last week have struggled this season. But, at the end of the day, if you're going to rest your quarterback, this might be the game as you look on your schedule and say, yeah, this might be a good one to rest him on. Backup quarterback Darrell Mack Jr., he didn't light it up or anything like that. Only threw for 69 yards, but he did rush for 120. I don't know if it's ever a good thing that your quarterback has more rushing yards than passing yards, but they got the job done for him, and they were able to do that. Hey, but I think the story of this game is UCF's defense forcing 5 turnovers. There's not a game in this country that you're going to win if you turn the ball over 5 times. So not much else to say there. UCF, you win.
Yeah, and I think it was good. Not having your Heisman hopeful Mackenzie Milton in the game, and then you have this young quarterback and Mack Jr. coming in, and then they solely relied on their defense in this game, and the defense came up big, kept this from actually being closer than it, and kept this actually in the first quarter. I'm sitting here like, are you kidding me? Central Florida, self-proclaimed national champions last year, undefeated this year, and you're going to struggle with East Carolina that I actually saw in person, and they are bad. So obviously a new quarterback started for East Carolina, another storyline there, but this guy, he threw 391 yards, but they turned the ball over 5 times, so I don't know if that evened out or not evened out, but hey, whatever. West Carolina's bad. We know that. Yep. Let's move on.
Moving on.
So, okay, Oklahoma and TCU, man. This game, thought there were going to be a little more fireworks in it, but man, when you got Kyler Murray on your team, and you're able to put up 531 yards. He goes in there and takes care of business. They piled up the yards. They scored points like they have been all season. They took care of business, and that's really all I got to say. They win 52-27.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, Kyler Murray, he bounces back. The team bounced back after the loss to Texas, having a week to think about it. Kyler Murray, 19 of 24 for 213 yards and 4 touchdowns. Oklahoma rushing attack was led by Brooks and Sermon, who both ran for over 100 yards each, and then totaled together 3 touchdowns. Sooner defense stepped up. And after the change at defensive coordinator, taking that week in there to make that change. Ruffin McNeil is the guy who's now calling the plays there on the defensive end. Pirate fans may remember him, was their head coach there for a couple of seasons as well. They only allowed 270 yards of total offense to TCU, come away with the win. Great job, Sooners.
Yeah, man, and I like Ruffin. I don't understand why East Carolina got rid of him. I got it. I mean,
Sure.
But you're East Carolina, man. You're not going to be a powerhouse. Right. So he was helping them get the job done. I know they're going through a whole culture change and trying to figure out what's going on. But man, Ruffin, he simplified the defense this weekend for the Sooners. They actually that was the thing that stuck out to me this game. Them going in and performing the way they did against a typically high-powered offense in TCU. So kudos to Mark Ruffin and to get that job done. Great. I really, I'm impressed with that, man.
We'll see what happens for them as they continue to move forward, because they still got some tough games coming down the stretch as well.
Yeah, man. So let's move on. This game, if you're talking about a defense showing up against another team, I mean, Michigan State, what is going on? You pulled off a good trick play to get your only score of the game in the third quarter. But
after a turnover.
Yeah, after a turnover, got it. Gotcha. But 65 total yards, that's the best. 50 passing yards, 15 rushing yards. I'm like, this can't be real. I watched the game. It was the most boring offensive performance by a Spartan team I've ever seen in my life. Right. And they lose this game to Michigan 21-7. What in the world is going on?
All right, so let me say this. Michigan is for real. All right, I don't care who you're playing. I don't care if you're playing, East Carolina at this point. You hold a team to under 100 yards, and by far under 100 yards. Your defense has showed up to play, and it looks like that they were, they got a little extra motivation there at the beginning of the game or before the game ever started in the pregame warm-ups. A little bit of altercation there between some of the Michigan State players and a couple of the Michigan defenders as well. So they got them kind of sparked up and ready to play, and, man, they showed up. I don't care who you're playing them. That's some suffocating defense right there. Shea Patterson throwing for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns was nice. Karen Higdon ran for 144 yards. That's nice, but that defense, wow. If you're going to play Michigan right now, you got to find a way to put some holes in that defense, because they're playing tough.
Yeah, the only downfall, man, and I know the Michigan Wolverine fans out there, listeners, are going to not like this, but I know Shea Patterson, he's good, and he's good, and I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that helps them. They're for real defensively.
Yeah.
But when you go up like against an Alabama or somebody that, their offensive clicking, I don't see, a Shea Patterson or Michigan offense just coming into a game and just being able to connect and score as fast as these other teams. They're more slow. They're more methodical with how they move the rock. And it just seems like, okay, they're awesome. And there's a lot of teams right now that are awesome defensively.
Right.
But there's a lot of teams also that are struggling offensively. But and I'm not saying the Wolverines got it. They win 21-7.
Yep.
And they go against a pretty decent defense in Michigan State. But this Michigan State team had 2 losses coming into this game.
Yeah, Michigan State just snuck into the top 25 rankings last week after that win against Penn State. We had been saying all year that Michigan State isn't the Michigan State of old. We get that. But this is that rivalry game. This is that game right here that Jim Harbaugh has not performed well in, has not coached well in with his Michigan team since he came on board. And so this was a big game for them to be able to get over that hump. And I will say this. Shea Patterson has been playing better. He's not going to light it up. You're right. He's not Tua. He's not going to be throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in 3 quarters. All right, that's not his game. But if they can rely on that defense, if they can have that running game going, if they can play ball control and slow it down a little bit there, they're going to keep themselves in some games. Are they going to win it all? No, no. Okay, Alabama's still the elite here. So let's keep watching how that happens. But Michigan is playing better. As the season has progressed on, they have gotten better, I felt like, every single week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I like where their defense is at. I like what the offense is doing, but again, they just don't have – it's like the big plays, you're just not seeing them as much for teams like that right now. But we'll see, man. The defense wins championships, but you also have to score more than another team.
Very true.
A Madden quote.
So, hey, listen at you.
So, okay, man. Moving on to the game, man. So this Mississippi State, again, it's one of those teams that keeps busting in the top 25, saying, we're here, top 25 team, and then we're going to lose and fall out again. So I don't know how many times they're going to leave, return. But offensively, man, come on. 51 passing yards? I mean, both offenses struggle. Again, I did say in our last, Mississippi State has a tough defense.
Yep.
But when your offense can't score points and LSU can just again get 226 total yards and win 19-3, come on, man.
This is another one of those deals right here where your quarterback has more rushing yards than he does passing yards. Fitzgerald, we made the comment that they had been unleashing him a little bit and letting him run the ball a lot more than they had been, trying to protect him in the pocket and that kind of deal. And so him being that dual threat quarterback, man, led me to believe this was going to be a lot better game than what it turned out to be. 19-3. Look, okay, I'm a believer in LSU's defense. Michigan State has a good defense, but I'm not a believer in LSU's offense, man. This was you talk about an ugly game. This was an ugly game as well. In a primetime spot right there, LSU's defense showed up. You made the comment for several weeks now about their defense being elite, and man, I'm a believer at this point, man. They are putting it on some people. But this game was at home, man. I expected their offense to be better than what it was. The quarterback, Joe Burrows, man, he did not impress me at all in this game, man. They were able to get that touchdown there after the opening drive turnover that Mississippi State had, and that was really all that it took. And from that point on, it was just kind of him hauling around and watching defenses play.
Yeah, the big thing that's really going to hurt them, I don't know, towards the end of that game, the boos were raining down from Tiger Stadium. I mean, even as quarterback Joe Burrow took that nil to close out the game for their latest convincing victory over another ranked opponent. But man. Right. The unusual scene spawned from an unfortunate play, and I don't understand how and why he got, just what. My thing is, the implications going forward. He's going to have to sit out, and when I say he, it's Michael Divinity Jr. He's going to have to actually sit out the first half of this Alabama game. So they have a bye week this week, but they have 2 weeks, and they're going to be this guy is one of the heart and souls of that defense. And that is really going to be a crushing blow at going against the top-ranked team in the nation. And you're going to need all hands on deck to slow down that offense.
Oh, no doubt. So, I mean, you kind of scratch your head at plays like that. You're hyped up. Yeah, it's in the middle of the game. But, man, you got to be smarter than that. You got to think through these plays. You got to know what you're doing and what the consequences are of those choices.
Yeah, but of note, though, Cole Tracy, man, his story is awesome. He played at a small college. Yeah. He went out on a limb, made some calls. He's playing for LSU now. He kicked 4 field goals, and he really helped them separate themselves in this game against Mississippi State when both offenses were struggling.
I thought it was a pretty cool number there they threw out there. I think when he was playing up at the D2 school that he was kicking in front of like 1,200 people, and now playing down there at LSU, he's kicking in front of over 100,000 people. So, man, that's quite a bit more people that are watching you play on Saturdays.
Yeah, man, and for everybody of note, they have a huge game. They have a bye week this weekend, right? So does Alabama. But they have a huge showdown coming up with unbeaten and top-ranked Alabama in a few weeks.
Hey, just a question for you. I wonder what College Game Day is going to be that week.
Yeah, when you have like the number 1 team versus the number 4, 2, 3, whatever you are at that time.
I just wonder where they're going to be. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So coming to this game, man, this NC State fans around here like, we're not getting any love. This, that, we're undefeated. They got a game canceled, and now you know why. They play, they go into Memorial Stadium in the Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson obviously is favored big, 17.5 points. Clemson goes in there and takes care of business. I mean, they donkey stomp them. They straight smash them. 41-7. 41-7.
All right, so we got several. We got quite a bit of a following of NC State fans that are listening to this podcast or are watching it on our YouTube and Facebook Live stuff. We got quite a few Clemson fans as well. So you guys feel free to chime in the comment section down there, man. Let us know your thoughts of how your team performed this weekend. But let's just call it like it is. All right, this is who we thought NC State was. This is not a huge surprise. We said last week that maybe NC State plays Clemson tough normally, and I think Clemson heard that chatter as well. I think they had heard, enough chatter about their team and maybe how the team hadn't been performing like they thought that it would. And NC State was going to come in there and give them a run for their money. If not beat them, certainly going to make them sweat it out a little bit. And I would venture to say that from the first kickoff to the end of the game, I don't know that any Clemson player sweat at all. It wasn't even a close game at any point in time. Trevor Lawrence really had himself a good outpouring as far as a good staple game for him to hang his hat on against a ranked opponent. 26 of 39 for 308 yards and a touchdown. Clemson's defense was suffocating. Ryan Finley never really got into a rhythm or anything like that. Man, his stats weren't good at all. But man, that Clemson team showed that why they're the number 3 team in the country in the class of the ACC.
Yeah, NC State was definitely going to have to rely on that senior leadership from Finley. He didn't provide that. He had two turnovers with 2 interceptions. I mean, they just simply didn't show up. And obviously they haven't faced any, elite competition this year. Obviously they face a Clemson team that's elite. And you see this. Dabo Swinney has his team. They play big in big moments. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do slip up against a Pittsburgh, a Syracuse, and have some sloppy games. Again, some of their focus might get redirected. They might lose a game that they're not supposed to. But man, when these big teams or these ranked teams, I can't call NC State big, but they came in 16 in the nation, undefeated.
They were undefeated.
They were undefeated. Okay, I guess for NC State fans, I'll say y'all were big for a week, or for 5 weeks or whatever it was. But it's one of those things, man. You expected a better performance. But this is what I see of Coach is it Durin? How do you spell? How do you pronounce it? Yeah, Coach Durin. He's one of those people that it's like, his job got saved because they beat a struggling Florida State team last year, and then and then they start off hot this year. They're undefeated, but they could have lost against West Virginia. I'm saying they would have lost against West Virginia. Okay, maybe I might be wrong in that assumption, but it's a huge possibility that they wouldn't have came into this game undefeated. Right. And they've looked okay. They didn't impress me when they played Pittsburgh when I went to watch that game in person. But man, like I said, Trevor Lawrence, he was looking for that game to kind of help people, because he was efficient last game, just not putting these huge numbers up. He got hurt. Yep. There's a lot of things that, everybody's like, will he help us go to this national championship or make the playoff at least?
Right.
But he really proved, I think, that he's ready to take the reins of this team and take them to the next level. I mean, when you beat somebody, when it's the number 16 ranked team in the nation, they're undefeated, and you beat them 41-7, you took care of business at home, and I mean, they're definitely the cream of the crop in the ACC.
Oh yeah, I mean, and by leaps and bounds. I mean, I'm not looking at a team right now that looks like they're going to, really dethrone the Clemson Tigers from this point as far as making their run as ACC champs again and making their way into the college playoff.
Yeah, and will Clemson slip up this year against an ACC opponent? They could. They could fall against Florida State. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's a possibility because, again, there's some times where their attention gets diverted somewhere and they slip and fall and lose the game. But when they play big teams, they step up. And so, again, that's the difference between elite, and this great and all this conversation. But, I mean, Dabo's the man. I'll give it to him. I'm not a Clemson fan by no means, but I have mad respect for that guy.
No doubt. Now, you mentioned something about teams slipping and falling. That may lead us into a game coming that we looked at this weekend.
Oh, like right now. So glad you mentioned that. Ohio State ranked number 2 in the nation, and you're favored by 12.5 against Purdue. Purdue is 4-3. I mean, they were 3-3 coming into this game. Yep. So the ranking, the standings we have in front of us right now, they were 3-3.
Yep.
They were 4-3 today because I'm talking about they mollywopped Ohio State in this game.
They shellacked the Buckeyes.
I mean, the Buckeyes. Okay, when you look at the statistics, you're like, man, this was a good game. It was not a good game because Purdue kept scoring, and until the second half, Ohio State couldn't figure out how to score a touchdown. So Purdue wins 49-20. They really took control of this game from the very beginning. They scored 28 points in the fourth quarter. What? I mean, okay, so when you're talking about a number 2 team in the nation that has a chance to possibly face an Alabama, you're going to have to play better defense than that.
Look, we were talking about Ohio State literally being the number 2 team in the nation and being the favorites there, or the closest team to be able to knock off an Alabama team. that everybody believes is the class of the nation. But we have been saying it too for the last couple of weeks now that Ohio State needed to get that running game going. That they couldn't just depend upon this high-powered throwing offense. And when you look at the stats, you're right. It looks like they did okay. Dwayne Haskins, he ended up throwing for a lot of yards, for 470 some odd yards there, right there as far as around that area. But he went 49 of 73. He threw the ball 73 times. That is ridiculous. He shattered the single-day throwing record that Ohio State had, but they only rushed for 76 yards. That is, obviously, you are not a balanced offense at that point in time, and you're right. They never tasted the end zone there until the fourth quarter. So, I mean, I think the final score may look like it was a little bit better, or the statistics there may say something about it. But Purdue, man, they held on to this game, and they dominated this game for pretty much the beginning of the game.
Yeah, they had control the whole time. There was not one time where I thought they were going to lose this game. And that's just realistic. I mean, when you look at it, Purdue, you're looking at it. They're winning 14-3. But, man, that 14-3 in that first half said something because they were just dominating. Yeah. I mean, they were keeping Ohio State out of the end zone. And it wasn't like Ohio State was turning the ball over left and right. If you go look at it, I mean, I couldn't even believe that. I look at the score and I'm like, okay, well, Ohio State, Haskins, they must be fumbling. They must be throwing interceptions. But I looked, there was no turnovers. And I was like, what is going on? It was just some of these missed tackles, some of these big plays. Purdue was making them, and Ohio State wasn't.
You look at it, Purdue's quarterback, David Blow, went 25 of 38 for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball well. DJ Knox ran 16 times for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, they were able to throw and pass the ball. I mean, throw and run the ball well. Their defense held on. They had that bend, break, don't break mentality right there, kept them out of the end zone. And, man, they really put up a little bit of a spanking there on those Ohio State Buckeyes.
I mean, shout out to DJ Knox running for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns to go with what their quarterback did.
Yep.
I mean, they stepped up big. Again, I did say a while back that even though they were 0-3, they beat a ranked Boston College team. That was a game I picked against them. But, man, you better watch out for this Boilermakers team. They're playing good ball right now. They've won 4 in a row. So they can go in and upset some more teams.
So another team that's playing well at the right time of the year.
Oh, yeah. So let's go in. Not much to say against this Alabama, number 1 team in the nation, plays a Tennessee team. They cruised 28 points in the first quarter, man. Alabama continued season-long pinch it for fast starts and quickly finished off Tennessee before Tennessee even decided to join the game. But Tua again shows out and passes to 4 receivers, and they just cruise, man. He had 4 touchdown passes, I want to say. They had 545 total yards, and Tennessee only having 31 rushing yards. I mean, come on.
There was some question marks in this game about whether or not Tua was going to even play coming off of that knee injury last week. And I think he kind of probably silenced a few people about whether or not how bad the knee was actually injured when he comes in there and leads to Alabama to getting 28 points in that first quarter. I think they end up taking him out there about midway through the third quarter. But who do you put back in there? Quite possibly another top 5 quarterback in the country in Jalen Hurts coming back in there leading the team as well. So, they dominate again. Stop me if you've heard this before. Alabama wins. Again. You're right. They're going to get a little bit of a breather this week, and then another big game coming up 2 weeks from now.
So we close out week 8, man. What were your thoughts or impressions? Anything that really stuck out to you other than some of these larger teams just belly flopping?
I tell you,
as far as Ohio State's concerned.
Man, there are several teams right there that you think should have done better. I think about Mississippi State. You're right there. That they seem to be up and down. In one week and out the next. As far as the top 25 is concerned, I expected more out of their offense. I obviously expected more from Ohio State coming into that game. I expected more. I know we just buried them a few minutes ago, but I expected more out of NC State too. I expected them to play better than what they did, and I think for me, it's the fact that Michigan continues to roll. They had that loss to Notre Dame first game of the season, and they have rolled ever since.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. Some of these teams having these elite defenses, LSU's defense, Michigan's defense. I mean, there's Iowa's defense. There's a lot of things that it's just right this week. All I can think about is just the defenses for these teams are really stepping up, and so the offenses for some of these teams is what's holding them back. So again, it was like with Kentucky. Kentucky is another one of those teams. They barely beat a Vanderbilt team, even though they're not ranked. It was one of those like, okay, Kentucky has a good defense, or they are ranked, but I mean they struggle, and it's like one of these that they're hit or miss, but their offense is just what, you know what I'm saying? It's not there. The passing yardage is not there. It's one of those things that a lot of these teams are struggling with. They got great defenses, they got elite defenses, but the offense is just so light years behind.
I expected more out of Oregon, too, in that game against Washington State. Yeah, Washington State was ranked. Yeah, Washington State was at home. But I expected Oregon's offense to play better than what it did, specifically the running game. And they just didn't. They just didn't bring it that week, and and they suffered the loss because of it.
Yeah, so we got the new 2018 College Football AP Top 25 Week 9 rankings came out today. Alabama, obviously, 8-0, number one. But the big of note here, you got Clemson at 2, Notre Dame 3, and LSU 4. Michigan's following in the top, they're in the top 5 now, move up to 5th. Texas 6th, Georgia 7th, Oklahoma 8th. Florida moves up 2 spots to 9th, and then Central Florida, obviously, they stay stagnant at the 10 spot. But the big mover in the poll is Washington State again. They were 25th coming into the week. They jumped to 14 in the nation, and then App State's ranked. What?
Yeah, man, there's a couple of surprises there. Utah jumps in there at number 23 as well. They came in not ranked. UCF standing pat, man. I was watching Florida jump over them. That's kind of interesting. For the coach that was sitting there last week talking about Alabama's schedule and different things like that. Yet you're still looking at 4 SEC teams in the top 5. Top 10, sorry. And so there's still something to be said there about those teams. It's still shaking out. Texas, who we thought was, who was out of it, has made their way into the top 6, man. Standing on the barrel there, looking at a couple of teams, to possibly try to work their way. We kind of said they were out of the pasture there and wouldn't be able to get back in. Man, they're knocking on the door of that top 4.
Oh man, they're in a great position, but we'll see if they could take care of business the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So who dropped from the rankings? Obviously Cincinnati, Mississippi State, and then Michigan State. So those 3 of note were ranked last week. They're not ranked anymore. And I guarantee Mississippi State wins this week. They'll be ranked again. It's like, come on, guy. It's musical chairs with them, Stanford. And they just keep popping in, popping out. It's like, just stay out for a little while and just have fun, and leave everything to everybody else. So top 25 Week 9 games of note. So we have 3 big matchups. Again, Washington State finds themselves in a tough matchup against Stanford. That's a 7 o'clock. It's one of those games that who wins? Right. Washington State's in a good position. Stanford, has 2 losses on the year. Then we got Florida and Georgia, and then we got Iowa and Penn State. So, what are your takes on these games?
Well, we've been Penn State hasn't looked good since that Ohio State game. Iowa's looking better. We talked about their defense and how well they've been playing. They do travel on the road, and we saw what kind of energy that Penn State can have once they have that stadium rocking. And so that 3:30 kickoff right there will be an interesting game to watch there for Ohio and Penn State. Can Ohio have that? Iowa, not Ohio. I can't read evidently. Iowa, can their defense, show up again and play strong? They've only got that 1 loss on the season, so we'll see what happens there in that game.
Yeah, obviously College game day will be at the Georgia-Florida game. It's a big one. Obviously, battle of 2 top 10 ranked teams. Georgia's coming in at 7, Florida at 9. This can be a huge step in the right direction and a huge step in the wrong direction for either team. I don't know if Florida loses this game, you can't say it's a bad step in the wrong direction for Mullen because of what they're doing so far this year. They're exceeding expectations. If they lose, okay, it's not a big huge thing. But if Florida actually beats Georgia, I think for Coach Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs and all the UGA fans out there, that would be devastating.
Well, I think this right here is a big game for their quarterback, Jake Fromm. He has got to lead this game well. He's got to play well in this game, or I don't know how much longer they'll continue to ride with him and not bring in that backup quarterback they got there, Fields, I believe is his name, and see what happens there with him. But Fromm has got to play well.
So, man, let's move on to out of all the top 25 matchups that we have going on in Week 9. That we have listed here. Who could be on upset alert? Just a quick breeze through. You can just pick one game out of all of it that you think, just one that really sticks out to you.
I'm going to take the fact that Alabama does not win this week.
Hey man, that's a good prediction because there's a bye. So I like that.
I'm just saying, it's a huge. This is the week they don't win.
Yeah, it's a huge week for Alabama, LSU, and Michigan in the top 5. They have byes, so they're not going to win or lose. So.
Well, I mean, yeah. You look at all these teams. You look at Alabama, LSU, Michigan. They've got buys. UCF doesn't play this week. They've got a bye, and Ohio State, man. So this is, initial thoughts is that this looks a lot like it did this past week. Almost a little bit of a downer, so to speak, as far as college football is concerned. You got those 3 games there playing ranked opponents. So we'll see what happens there. I'm just kind of looking around, looking down at this thing. I don't know that any of the ranked games you would consider to be upsets outside of that Stanford and Iowa game. I mean, I'm Stanford and Iowa, Stanford and Washington State game. That's going to be a big one there. I tell you, West Virginia still kind of circling right there. I'm not a big fan of Baylor or anything like that, but man, West Virginia is still not high on my list. And watching Will Grier play.
Yeah, when I look at this, South Florida, they're 21, undefeated. I'm looking at that Houston team. I actually got to see in person. I'm thinking they can cause a problem for this South Florida Bulls team and actually pull this upset off, because that would be a huge upset if they do that.
Oh, no doubt there.
So, brother, another episode, another good time, and I appreciate you jumping on.
Hey, man, it has been great. I've enjoyed this hanging out here with you today, man. Hope everybody's having a great college football season. Hope your team is doing well. And if it's not, man, stick around with us every week as this episode drops, and we will shed some light on what's happening around the country. And, man, you can jump on with a new team.
Awesome, man. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the College Sports Hour. If you enjoyed today's show, check out and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, and YouTube under College Sports Hour. You can also find us at heroesmediagroup.com by clicking on the show tab. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook, guys, and visit our website at collegesportshour.com, where we continue the college sports conversation, post articles, and give our weekly predictions on what we deem as the most important games of the week.
Again, today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Blue 4 Tactical. Blue 4 Tactical is a hub for local shooting novices and enthusiasts alike by giving them superior customer service while providing high-quality firearms and accessories and informative, engaging classes taught by knowledgeable and passionate instructors, all at the fairest and competitive prices possible. The Blue 4 Tactical team members will bring to the table more than 100 years of combined experience in firearms, shooting, and tactics through military experience and other backgrounds. This is important because they will use this experience to build a relationship with every customer to better understand their needs, so that they as a team can get them the tool that suits them without the customer having to worry about them simply trying to make a sale. They want to be a part of your family and make that family your home away from home. Be prepared, be ready, be decisive.
We also want to give a special shout out to our family members and friends who continue to support what we do. Don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of the College Sports Hour.